Aston Villa and Newcastle have been two of the most fun teams to kind of watch in the Premier League this year. Both have been making headlines over the last 12 to 18 months for climbing up the summit of the league. And it was the opening game of the Premier League season, and it made so many headlines and kind of went against the grain a little bit in the sense of like how high scoring it was. So coming into this game, Aston Villa at home to Newcastle. Aston Villa firmly established in the the top four, top five picture at the moment, with Newcastle having just recently fell off that picture after a rather extraneous Champions League campaign. Both teams have went through the January window with different pains of their own. This match was very entertaining and a lot of fun to watch. But there was a couple of things in it that I think were real telltale signs for where these clubs are potentially going to start excelling or maybe dropping back down the table. Because at this point, the January window is basically closed, and failing any deadline day magic that I'm not going to capture in this video, this is essentially the outlook of the squads that they have for the remainder of the season. And that in itself, I think, is a really good place for both these squads to be in terms of extra buy-in from the manager to the squad that's there. For Unai Emery, I think his hands are kind of tied a little bit. I'm sure he would love to get some extra defensive reinforcements in. And with Eddie Howe, of course, his hands are just completely tied. Both teams have really spent a lot of money reinforcing their squads. At any point in the video today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel. We're pushing for 10,000 subscribers, and we cannot do that without your support, guys. But let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, on the surface of it, as soon as I seen the team sheets coming out, Cash and Moreno did seem like a kind of attacking defence. One that, Unai Emery normally, I think the last time they played in that kind of attacking shape with like Digne and Cash, because Digne was fit, it was against Sheffield United. So, didn't really feel like the sort of team that normally Emery would list out to play a top of the table club like Newcastle. Normally, we would see Concert at right back with Diego Carlos, Pau Torres. Pau Torres obviously not fit and available, but this is the team that he opted for. Didn't surprise me, but I thought probably for Aston Villa being the home team, they're going to put a lot of focus and a lot of their energy into midfield with the best players in their team, essentially being this kind of box midfield. Use Diaby's pace and then use Watkins as the arrowhead forward, kind of like we've seen them do all season long. And for the most part, for the first like 20-30 minutes, Aston Villa were covering a fair amount of possession. They did try and make some opportunities happen. And as you know with the game, you guys watching this already know how the game went. 3-1 victory. Of course, Shard gets the 2 goals from rebounds and from set pieces. The first one really impressive. The second one speaks a lot about Gordon's ability. But that kind of sucker punch element for Newcastle really put them in control of the game. And from there, Aston Villa really had to express their absolute attack. They had to go back and try and get themselves back into the game. And this just absolutely fed in to the sort of game plan that Newcastle want. Newcastle want teams to come up high on the pitch and, try and give them, try and win the game for themselves, which gives Newcastle space in behind. Now, I thought Lewis Miley was a really effective kind of like attacking midfielder, especially in the early portions of this match. And I think he was quite unlucky to maybe not to get a little bit more off the back of his endeavour. And seeing him, like I've said before on this channel, when I see this guy popping up in attacking spaces, he's always dangerous, he's always switched on, and he's just maybe, a bit of experience or a wee bit of progression away to being really effective in that area of the pitch. But as we've seen in this match, when Aston Villa go to attack this game and really push it to the limit, when you've got this kind of box 4-man midfield as your main kind of, your main identity, your main tactical kind of strength in the match, you're going to have to follow the ball all over the pitch. And when you follow the ball all over the pitch, to a greater or lesser extent, depending on exactly where everything is and that kind of thing, the defence is going to have to come and close those gaps down and make things tight and narrow in behind. And Aston Villa, this is just playing absolutely into Newcastle's hands. Newcastle want to have a bit of space to run in behind. Of course, Isak didn't finish the match. It became Almiron. But as soon as Newcastle's attack sees like a big portion of space to play into, the balls that can be played from Bruno, Trippier, all sorts of players in this Newcastle team are well adept at finding Gordon, finding Isak, Almiron, depending on who was on the pitch, into these areas here. And that's how the third goal comes around. And Newcastle were a constant threat from this all game long. And what I thought was really clever about this was Anthony Gordon, because as you know, with this Aston Villa kind of shape here, I particularly noticed it around the Isak kind of substitution, but it's kind of obvious when you see this team that Cash wants to go high up on the pitch, and probably the plan of attack for Aston Villa is get on to Burn. Get Cash out and beyond here, have him overlapping Diaby, let Diaby come inside, or maybe they can mix it up. Diaby will go out the outside, maybe Cash comes into the box. We did see that happen maybe once or so, and then we're trying to find Watkins or maybe another midfielder that could have been in the picture to support ever so slightly. And what when this was happening, which just does happen in the match, Murphy's obviously kind of came back a little bit, depends on what side of the pitch it's on. But after the Isak substitution, and it kind of felt more like Almiron and Gordon were the main kind of two in attack, you know. And Gordon was just putting himself on Konsa. Almiron was in and around here and whatever. But as soon as they lose the ball here, the ball goes to Burn, maybe it's to Botman, and then someone's going to put a pass into the channel. Matt Cash is just walking, well, he's not walking, he's jogging back, right, to be fair to him. But he's not got that much pressure on him because he just sees everyone's kind of man-marked or so. Aston Villa aren't overly exposed man for man. And he thinks, okay, well, I'm not losing a man. I'm not losing a runner here. I'm kind of free to come back into possession, maybe grab my breath if it's later in the match. But those balls, Gordon just had Konsa on toast for so much of this game. Gordon, I never see him play a bad game. It goes from strength to strength, I think, and he did really good at hiding in this little pocket here, letting Cash think there was no missing person. Oh, he's marking him, he'll be fine, you know. That's kind of the sentiment you kind of get from it. Oh, if you watch Cash tracking back here, certainly anyway. And I say Gordon and Almiron especially. Almiron's pace. Almiron and Gordon have undeniable pace. It really doesn't matter how good a defender you are. If it is just going to be a foot race of some description over 10 yards, even 5 or 6, these guys are just lightning. And they can be the difference at this elite level of the game. Big mention for Fabian Schär, of course. I'm not too sure that anyone in the Villa team really stood out with real glory. I think Martinez and Dubravka definitely had some moments of their own, but I was most impressed with Gordon just kind of hiding in that kind of space and allowing himself to, you know, let the fullback die on his sword, if you like. So I think Cash is probably, unfortunately, one of the biggest faults for Aston Villa in this. And equally, you know, I kind of said at the tip-off of the video that both of them, you know, transfer windows are basically done, good for squad morale. Kieran Trippier was a huge part of this for Newcastle for me, from like the dead ball situation, just being a leader. And see, any time the ball came down this side of the pitch, like nobody get by him. Trippier was absolutely solid. And I know there was a lot between him and Almiron. I think it was great games for both of them, because for me, if Newcastle, I beg your pardon, are going to double down with Eddie Howe, and they're not going to be bagging him, you need to keep Trippier, you need to keep Almiron, you need to double down with the strategy that they've got in terms of this best 11 that they've been building. Now, FFP-wise, the Trippier move makes a lot of sense, and I can see it must have been a difficult decision for all involved. But I do think that Newcastle came into this game with that, you know, the internal squad, the actual, all those guys, all the players, the coaches, the manager, probably came into this game feeling really unified, that, you know, we are here together for better or for worse. Doesn't matter what injuries we've got. Guys are coming back. We'll be doing better and better, hopefully, as the season goes on. But Isak getting an injury here is definitely going to worry Newcastle fans. But honestly, when was the last time you've seen 3 subs for Newcastle? And I know Kraft for 1 minute, whatever, right? But Livermento and Almiron. Newcastle's bench has been dead all season. Same can't be said for Aston Villa. Always a very strong bench, and the bench kind of influenced the game for them and kind of gave them a bit of life towards the end of the match. I don't think there's really too much to worry about here for Aston Villa or Newcastle, but looking at both teams and how the game shook out, it is going to be a really difficult end to the season for both of them. Now, Aston Villa still have European football to contend with as well, not in the next round, but the round after. And when that piles on as well, with still an FA Cup match to go, you know, this Aston Villa defence is really, really struggling. I would have loved to have seen them get some defensive reinforcements in this January window. We're not going to talk about their January window. But I think in this game, it was quite clear to see that Konsa in at centre-back, I think he looks really good at that right-back position, and kind of tucking in with, you know, big guys like Diego Carlos, Longley if he's the only guy that's available. Ideally Pau Torres, of course. I just feel that's the better place for him. I've always been impressed with Konsa at the right back, but of a back four and the left back bombs on, you know, in this kind of picture. Diego Carlos comes in, Konsa on this side. Because I think then, if Gordon tries that game with Konsa, especially if he thinks that's the man I'm going for, then you've got 2 defenders behind him. And if he tries that game with Diego Carlos number 1 might body him a bit better, but Konsa's not going to be up here like Cash is, so you've got a wee bit of protection. So I do feel that that's the best place I've seen Konsa play has been in this role here. I think for this match, it would have done probably the team the world of good for the way the game went, as well as Isak obviously didn't complete the match. But yeah, I do really feel that Newcastle will be coming out of this game feeling really buoyed. And if we have a look at the actual Premier League table, Newcastle, like I've said a few times on the channel, they've already collected 10 losses this season. It really puts a ceiling on how high they can finish. If they start to get to 12 losses, 13 losses. Getting into Europe is just kind of unfeasible in previous seasons for that to be possible. And Aston Villa, again, similar position, where being in the top 4 pushing for Champions League, you know, again, their position is very precarious as well. So both teams coming into this game, this was always going to be a big, for Aston Villa, maybe trying to score, settle a score. But for Newcastle, I think this is a real, this is a real, we have not went anywhere. Newcastle now up to 7th in the table with an FA Cup run to come as well. But for both of these teams, I feel there's going to be so much pressure now coming into every match to get the victory. Aston Villa are currently in 4th, Newcastle are currently in 7th, and like I mentioned, Aston Villa do have a huge fixture, commitment to come, let's say, especially compared to the depth in the squad, the availability and defence, like we've mentioned in the video a few times. Is it feasible that these teams could swap positions by the end of the season? Aston Villa out the top 4, Newcastle into the top 4. And, you know, even looking at it, both teams, 22 games played, both have scored 44. Newcastle conceding 33, Aston Villa conceding 30. And that's after the game that they've just played now. 2 very evenly matched teams, but the difference has been those losses. Newcastle can fix that problem second half of the season, and maybe if Aston Villa have a few more bumps in the road in the second half of the season than the first, and really anything is possible. Aston Villa fans, I know, are dreaming. Newcastle fans, I know, are dreaming as well. So much is going on at the top end of the Premier League for like good clubs that are full of like a bit of history and good fan bases already. And I love seeing them going head to head. Losing my days of the week here on Tuesday night. It was a really entertaining match. It was hard to pick a side for me because I'm a big fan of both clubs and their current kind of format and tenure, as it were. So really exciting match for the neutral. And I think we did see quite easily, Newcastle will beat any team who try and attack them. You know, they're amazing in doing that. And Aston Villa can play so many different little shapes, which we've not really spoken about too much in the video, but I was less impressed with Villa. But the bench, as we've highlighted, we did highlight that. The bench did come on and make a bit of a difference with Bailey, especially, quite notably with the assist. So yeah, who do you think is going to finish higher this season? Aston Villa or Newcastle? Let me know in the comment section down below. On screen now is some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share and retweet, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.